It is a beautiful day to just show up. Hi, everyone. Yvonne Heath here, nurse turned author, speaker, and changemaker, and your host. Welcome to Navigating Grief with Heart and Humor, where we talk about, plan, and prepare for grief, transitions, end of life, all the messiness in between, long before it arrives, and diffuse the fear so we can live fully now. We are proactive. We are not reactive. Well, most of the time, we were reactive in the past and sometimes still are. We have been in crisis and realized that we created excessive suffering by not talking about, planning, and preparing for the unpredictability of life. Life is unpredictable. Prepare for anything. Change is the only constant. We don't have to like it, but if we can accept that and plan for what we can plan for and navigate the rest, knowing that life will throw us some curveballs. There will be glitches. That is just a part of this journey. We will be able to navigate this journey we call life with greater joy. And as we understand and allow grief and joy can coexist. And if we are intentional about creating and allowing the joy and the laughter and the heart and the humor and the humanness, we can teach by example and have a wonderful, beautiful, positive impact on the world. So let's get started. As always, I want to start with a little fun fact. And it's so funny because we all have things that just bring us so much joy, and for other people it is meaningless. And one of those things for me is my garden. And it's funny because my husband Jordy, yes, he does say, "Oh, what a lovely flower, what a lovely plant you've planted." And probably most of the time he's just humoring me. However, I do know that he loves seeing these wonderful gardens, but I mean, he doesn't get up every morning to see what's blossomed and bloomed, and that's what I do. And again, I have a brown thumb, not a green thumb. And so everything that I've planted, or when we moved here, there were many things in the garden. I had no idea what anything was. So I have this little app and it's like, oh, what is this? What is this? And that's how I'm learning. And there were two plants here in the garden, coneflowers and hollyhocks. And I nurtured them and I watered them. And as they were growing, I had to put this ring around because they seemed to be getting taller and taller. Well, these plants that I didn't even know, that I didn't even plant, they're perennials. They come back every year. They are now over 9 feet tall, or 9 feet high. These incredible plants. So here I am in my wonderful creative space here. And when I open my curtain and I look out my window on the second level here, or I mean, the garden is quite low, they're in my window, 9 feet tall. I mean, even if you don't think gardens are magical, which yes, they are, please pay more attention. Nature is absolutely extraordinary. Isn't that so amazing? 9 foot high hollyhocks and coneflowers for me to look at each and every day. So that's my fun fact for today. And as always, before we begin, I'm going to quiet my mind, my ritual for grounding and being fully present. We all have a lot of things that are calling us away on the other side of the door. Whenever we want to be really fully present, yes, it's always a good idea to be mindful so that we're not thinking about other things and missing what's happening in our lives now. But when I want to be really intentional and really present and grounded, I close my eyes. I take 2 slow, deep breaths, inhaling through my mouth, setting an intention, or inhaling through my nose, setting an intention, exhaling through my mouth, grounding myself and letting go of everything that does not serve. And I'm very intentional. What is the greatest message that I can share today? What do you need to learn? What do I need to learn? We're always learning from one another. We're always learning, unlearning, and evolving. And so I invite you to join me in just helping to calm the noise in your brain out there. And join me in 2 slow, deep breaths, inhaling and exhaling, or whatever ritual works well for you. So I'm going to close my eyes. I invite you to do the same and inhale with an intention. Exhale and ground. Letting go of anything that does not serve right now. And one more time, inhaling with intention. And exhaling and grounding. And just letting go of everything that does not serve me at this time and all the noise on the other side of that door. So thank you for joining me today. And, you know, as I prepare to sit and have these conversations, I'm always it's important to me to be very intentional. It's important to me to be very authentic and flawed and imperfect, which that's easy. That's the easy part. And I want to share and I want to talk about catch up, grieving, and mourning. Because in all that I share and present in workshops, I talk about the fact that when we are grieving, when grief arrives, it is so important to acknowledge and allow our feelings, other people's feelings, what we are going through, to create space for grieving. And as my wonderful friend Maria Klevkoff gave me this language, to convert grief to mourning. Mourning is that external expression, getting it out. Your grief is that, to me, as I define it, our mental, physical, emotional reaction to loss, transitions, change, and it's inside, it's whatever makes your heart ache. And that mourning is how we heal as we express it, and that outward expression. And as I've shared teaching the grade 2, or talking with our grade 2 children, I said, you got to get it out, shout it out, laugh it out, cry it out, hug it out, something. You've got to get it out. And to me, it's a yes, and it is so important to do. And truthfully, sometimes when I say grief shows no mercy, it arrives unannounced and uninvited. It does not care what else you are going through, and it does not care if you've had enough. It can be relentless, and it can destroy relationships, it can destroy success, and it can destroy you. And grief is coming. Well, that got dark, didn't it? And grief is coming. And sometimes it comes in floods. There are so many different things, and complex grief and collective grief and all of these things going on mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially. It's hitting you in every direction. And at the time, there are so many other things that need to get done, that you need to tend to. The elephant in the room, let's just be honest, sometimes there isn't the space to truly allow yourself to fully feel all your feels, to just take some time out and say, whew, wow, sometimes it's just too much, isn't it? And I've experienced that in the last 6 months of my life. And I am beyond grateful for the work I do, and the understanding and continuously learning. And in these 6 months, I have reached out for support. I have created moments where I could just feel like I could fall apart, and yet I didn't feel like I had enough space or time to fully process everything that was going on, because there was just too much. And so that's when again, Maria shared that if we have buried and carried grief, or as I think of the last 6 months of my life, kind of like delayed the converting grief to mourning, or like fully, I allowed myself or created moments and times where I could, but I knew that I had so much more to process. And I knew that there were so many other things going on that I needed to say, okay, I'm not burying this grief. I'm not going to stuff it down, because I know what that does to us. It just chips away at our hearts and souls. And so I knew that I had more processing to come, but there was not enough time to process each thing, because again, in the last 6 months, there were 4 relatives with declining health issues. That, I mean, in that, it isn't just, the anxiety and fear and unknown and needing physical rides to doctor's appointments, listening and getting medication and trying new medication and reaction to medication. There's also the emotional aspect and the grief and the sadness and the upset. And there's so much swirling around. And then there's the ripple of that illness or event and how it's affecting everyone else around. So there's kind of this chaotic emotional time. And it was like there was one event after the other. So, you're like, oh, we're dealing with this. Oh, this person is going through this now. And it was like in 2-week periods, it was kind of madness. And so I knew that, some have recovered well, others have long-term changes, life-altering effects from their illness, and there's tremendous grief in that for them, for me, and so I knew there was more to process in that. And then, of course, it was the time getting ready for empty nest, as Jaden and Tanner, the twins, were getting ready to leave home for camp and university, and there were so oh my goodness. Anybody ever get their kids ready for university? Anybody ever get 2 kids at the same time getting ready for university? My mind was already spinning, and there were things to apply for, and scholarships and residence, and then they were upset, and relationships that changed, and friends that were in crisis, and losses and change and disappointments and obstacles. And there were just so many things in such a short period of time, and then exams and graduation and going to camp. And it was just this big swirl. And in all of it, I, at any moment, could have loved to have had, a few days to have a big cry and self-care and all that. There wasn't the time at the time. That's just all there is to it, because there were deadlines to be met. And I was the anchor, because as much as these kids, they need to do it on their own. Well, they were also working and studying, and they were doing so many other things. So I needed to be on top of things, and I needed to be on top of things, helping relatives navigate the healthcare system and their health issues. So, that was happening simultaneously. Right leg issues, which I've had forever. I've shared before, because I'm an oversharer, that in May 2022, I had a large, benign, so it was non-cancerous tumor removed from my right kind of leg, hip, buttocks area. And I had been having right leg pain for years. Finally realized that this is what was happening, had it removed. Surgeon's like, oh, all your pain is going to go away. And I was so excited. And it didn't. And it didn't. I feel for anyone, and you understand what I'm saying, when you think, you've had this surgery, this procedure, and oh my goodness, you're going to be so much better, and then you're not. Wow, the deep disappointment, the frustration of having to, there's something else going on, and starting over with doctor's appointments and physio and all of these other things and trying to figure out what is happening. So frustrating, I have to say. So I know you feel me if you've been through it. And if you haven't, I'm sure you know somebody who has. So again, 6 months, all of these things swirling around. And our older son, Tyler, my dear, wonderful, sweet Tyler, whose journey catapulted me to this new journey of realizing that we are ill prepared for grief, death, and dying, and realizing that we don't know how to just show up for one another. So that was extraordinary. And, that was like many, many, many years ago, a decade and a half ago. And again, I unapologetically share Tyler's journey has been like a roller coaster. And in all of this swirling of the other stuff, he shared that he is really struggling and his struggles are greater than I imagined. He is also in British Columbia in Canada. I am in Ontario. We are in Ontario, so we are very far distance-wise. So those few little issues there, and then the regular life disappointments and all the things, and then supporting friends who have gone through tremendous grief and collective grief in the world. So I think you could probably understand how I just couldn't get to processing any one of these things, like giving it its due diligence. And so then I got to the children, Jaden and Tanner left, and I went into crazy lady mode, decluttering, because I could feel this anxiety, right? They left and I could feel this anxiety, and I was decluttering and sorting and pulling weeds and doing all of these things. And then I realized it's funny because your heart and your soul and your body are all so wise, because my body kind of said, you know what, I need a break here. We're working too hard and we need to pause. And it was like I hit a wall. Have you ever hit a wall? I don't mean a physical wall. It was like this invisible wall, and I just hit it. And I suddenly just felt so exhausted. And as we all do, I was kind of in a little denial, like, oh, what is happening? I guess I need a break. I need a rest. And what I realized was I need to process my grief. I need to convert my grief to mourning. I need to express it. I had been doing some of it along the way, but again, there was just so many things happening. And so I really had to pause and say, what is happening? And I felt that wall. I just felt awful and uncomfortable and paralyzed. And I just looked at my husband. I said, I am out of film. I've got nothing. I can't even move. And I was wise enough to say, please don't try to fix me. Please don't try to fix this. This sucks right now, and I have to feel it. And it was 7:30 p.m. Now I go to bed early, not usually 7:30. I went and lied in my bed, and I just stared into space. And I realized that I had so much to process and grieve and mourn. And I was carrying it. I wasn't bearing it. I was carrying it. And it was time. And I was so grateful for the space, the time that I could do that. And so that was a hard evening of just feeling paralyzed and blah. I felt just, ugh. I just wanted to feel better. And I knew I had to sit in this with these crappy feelings, feeling awful mentally, physically, emotionally, all of it. And I just said, yes, I'm allowing this. There were no tears. Sometimes there's tears. The tears didn't even come. And I just sat with it or lied with it. I was in bed. And there was nothing. It was like nothing was really, the synapses weren't, connecting. It was I just needed to just be in it. And I didn't like it. When I woke up the next morning and I had a big sleep and I felt better than I did. And I was so grateful. And I also knew it wasn't time to dive into more projects. It wasn't time to get really busy. It was just time to process and ease into it and really listen to my own wisdom. And so I started and I thought, okay, what do I need right now? And I got my self-care toolbox. I talk about my self-care toolbox. It is actually something that I absolutely am passionate about using. And there's paper in there and a notepad, and it tells me, right. I need to write. I need to write this out. I need to get this out. I need to convert all this grief to mourning. And there is so much. Wow. And I need to be so patient and gentle and kind with myself. So gentle and kind with myself. And so I wrote down all of the things that have been happening in the last few months, all of the things that brought me sadness and frustration and anxiety and all of it. And I wrote it all down. And then I processed and I allowed my feelings, and it was a lot. So I'm still processing. And there were some things that were better. And it's like, oh, thank goodness this is better. Thank goodness this is better. And so I continued with that process, and I stayed away from the what ifs and the why. Why did this happen? What if I had done something differently? Because I know those can destroy us. So please keep that in mind. Perhaps if you need to say, I wish I would have done this, you can say yes and grieve that. And then now what? And so I really needed to do that. And the other thing that was very helpful for me is this wonderful quote, don't wait for the spirit to move you, move the spirit. I didn't wait to feel like going for a walk. I didn't wait to feel like going into my garden, because I knew that those were the things that I needed, that filled my heart and soul, that, as I'm pulling weeds, I can just mourn and cry. And as I'm walking in nature, it nurtures me, and I can say out loud the things that have been so sad and stressful and this is too much. It's been so much. And so I don't wait, and I didn't wait when I needed to pause, and I just felt like I hit that wall. There was no move in any spirit. I just needed to be. I just knew I was listening to the wisdom of my body. It's like, you know what? I need to move. And I'm not going to wait till I really feel like doing it. I'm going to go. And I would go in the garden and tell myself, as soon as I'm done, I'm not going to force myself. When I went for that walk, and I was so intentional about listening to the birds and listening to and looking at everything around me, all the beauty in the forest and the different trees and scurrying squirrels. And so I knew that as I was doing that, I was acknowledging and allowing my feelings and nurturing myself at the same time, right? Grief and joy can coexist. And so I wasn't ignoring my grief. I was bringing in the joy at the same time as they walk down the path together. It isn't one or the other. And so it was a very moving, it was moving for me. Literally, things were moving, and I could feel my grief moving through me, and feeling and reminding myself that whatever someone else was going through is their journey, and my journey is to love and support them along the way, not to judge, not to fix, not to change, to help in any way I can, have my healthy boundaries. What can I do today? What can I not do today? That day that I was paralyzed, there was nothing I was going to do for no one. But that understanding that I needed to express, to convert my grief to mourning, to get it out, to not wait, to feel like doing the things that I knew would help me to feel better. Getting dressed, putting on some makeup, doing my hair. I didn't wait till I felt like doing that because I knew that would help me. I wear my favorite shirt today. This is just like, it's just got all these cool colors. And I love this. And I love my tree of life. And so I am being very intentional about allowing my grief and creating joy. And we all have different ways that help us to express. And truly, when I'm writing it down, when I'm writing, it's very helpful to me. And I know I will also reach out to a friend. I have a friend that I know we can have a wonderful conversation about this. Maria, she is wonderful. And know that who can and cannot support me in this, right? And to be very aware of that. And so it's been this extraordinary, beautiful reminder. Again, just because I do this, I'm very passionate and purposeful about learning, unlearning, evolving, and understanding how to grieve and convert my grief to mourning. It doesn't mean I don't get a get out of grief free card. Unfortunately, I wish I did. I think I should. I don't. And to allow my messy process to understand and to remind ourselves that one of the most important things, how we feel right now, is temporary. Change is the only constant. So as there's so much grief swirling around, that will change as well. And if we can allow the moments, the whatever pieces of joy, of laughter, of love, hug and go to pets and whatever, pet dogs. And like my poor cats and my dog have had so much love lately. They're like, oh God, here she comes again. Because along the way, as I'm crying, I can also hold my cat and one of the cats and feel so good and feel loved. And so I invite you to convert your grief to mourning. And when it feels like there's just too much to process, just remember that change is the only constant. And you never know what awaits on the other side of grief. Our grief demands to be heard. It demands to be felt. No, it isn't pleasant. However, it doesn't mean you can't bring in the joy along the way. And know that there are beautiful, wonderful people around the world that can support you. There are wonderful resources online. If you go to my website, I have wonderful resources there. And know that I will always just show up for you as well. On this wonderful network, Win-Win Women, there are many women who also share their journey and are here to support you. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for just showing up for me, even as part of my mourning. Expressing is sharing what I have been experiencing, and I would be more than happy, delighted to hear your story and support you in any way I can. So remember to convert your grief to mourning, and when it's too much, just know that your heart will heal. Battered, scarred, and never the same, but it will heal when we learn to take care of ourselves and each other. And of course, as always, if we want to be able to be there for one another, my call to action: plan your life, plan your death, and then just love your life to death. And always bring your own tambourine to the party. Thank you so much, my beautiful friends. I love you. I am here for you. And know that even as I am grieving, I am absolutely more than happy to just show up for you in any way that I can. with, of course, my healthy boundaries. Thank you. I love you. Love yourself through your process. Be patient, be kind, be gentle, and take good care. Bye for now.